come to you this morning, America, because I love you. And this is one of the most important clips that you're ever going to watch in your entire life. I'm going to tell you about this flag. This flag is called Forever Glory. It was birthed in 2010, and I want to tell you the story on that. If you notice that the flag has the stars, all 50 stars, in a circular flat fashion. It's called Forever Glory. I'm going to tell you how this happened. I'm going to take you back and bring you forward. Back before the Civil War, back in 1860, and even before, the South was talking about seceding from the Union. And when Abe Lincoln was voted into office as the President of the United States and took his oath upon the Constitution on March 4th, 1861, when he won that election, the South was happy. They were making bonfires and celebrating because they created a new nation. It was called the Confederacy, and they made Jefferson Davis their man. There were 7 states that seceded from the Union. And when Lincoln was in office, some 21, 22 days after that, actually on the 27th of March, 1861, there was a call to legislate. There was a call to bring the Congress together. The South never showed up. Lincoln was caught in a tremendous crisis. He had no quorum. He couldn't do any legislature. The war broke out April 12th, and on April 15th, Lincoln drew up the first executive order. And all through the Civil War, he ran the war with executive orders because he didn't have a Congress. The Constitutional Congress, the separation of powers, was dormant. It was left. It was like it was buried, but it wasn't dead. It was simply dormant. I want you to understand that. And from that time forward, with all the executive orders that took place through the Civil War, and then Lincoln wanting to restore his Congress, his legislature, in his second term in 1865, he had greenbacks printed up by the Treasury Department, and he was going to set America on a course that could pay its bills and pay for the Civil War and get America standing upright and do the Constitutional Congress and have everything set up the way it was supposed to be, the way the Founding Fathers meant it to be. And then he was assassinated on the 15th of April in his second term of office. And it never happened to where his dream or what he wanted to do to come back and re-inhabit the Constitution never happened because of the elite, the powers that be, took it for their own gain. And what they did is they made a corporation out of the United States of America, and they called it United States Inc. In 1871, Washington, D.C. made Washington, D.C. a corporation, and then later the United States was found to be a corporation, and it continued to look like a government, but it was a corporation. The president really wasn't the president of the United States of America. It was the CEO and the vice president of a corporation. They made all the states corporations. They made all the cities, all the township corporations. Later on, they even made the churches corporations. In 1954, they came up with the 501c3, the gag order, to keep the preachers, the clergy, quiet about any politics in their church, about voting for a particular candidate. And in 1910, on Jekyll Island, there was some elite people that had an agenda to form a central bank, and they called it 3 years later the Federal Reserve. They made it a Federal Reserve Act. Many of you know this, but the Federal Reserve is no part of the government. It's a private entity. And from that, in 1933, they took all the gold away from the American people, and they made a feudalistic banking system, and they printed the FRNs, the Federal Reserve notes, bills. paper out of thin air, nothing to back it because they took all the gold away. And to them, debt meant money. So for you to go in debt, it meant money because it meant that you had to prove to pay back with a service, with the job that you had, and with interest, you would pay back your note. And that's the way it's been. And so in 1947, I'm going fast here because I'm getting to this end because I want to tell you about this. I want to tell you about this. No one knows about this. There's only a few that know about this. In 1947, the Supreme Court took the last few words of Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists, talking about thus a wall was built of separation of church and state. And they coined that phrase and they attached it to the First Amendment. That's the way it was written. And they said this separation of church and state must remain high and impregnable. And for 15 years, the media, who was bought off by the elite, shortly in the early 1900s, so that they were told, the editors were told what they could publish, and then later on the radio stations and the television stations were told what they could say. There hasn't been a free press for over 100 years. And so they indoctrinated you and me and told you, and in 15 years from 47 to 62, they kept telling you separation church and state, separation church and state, and they made you believe that that's what the First Amendment said. And in 62, this is where it really happened. It's like the frog in the water. They had the flame up, it was on low when they first put the frog in the water, but this time they were turning it up to over medium, and the water was getting hot. And in 62, they went back to 47, and they said this is what really this First Amendment is about, is the separation of church and state. They changed the meaning of church. They took prayer out of school. The Supreme Court did in 63. They followed by taking the Bible out of school, curriculum out of school, having to do with the Bible. And from that point on, America disintegrated. It went down to where we are today, slowly but surely. The flame's been turned up. And to now we have a boil. And in 1962, and from 15 years later, the teenagers under 17 years old, the girls were pregnant. The preteen pregnancy, it rose some 500%, and sexually transmitted diseases were well over 200% in that 15-year period. The divorce rate went way over 100%. In fact, before 62, the divorce rate was on a decline. But after they took prayer out of school and the divorce rate had climbed, it was one of the worst divorce rates in the whole country, in the whole world. Not only that, the aggressive, all the stuff that was going on with aggressive breaking of the law, the crime rates went up close to 800%. One of the worst crime rates in the world took place. The SAT scores plummeted, all because they took prayer out of school, because they did away with Bible reading. They didn't even want you to put a nativity scene up. And then 50 years later, nearly 50 years later, while Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt, they made it legal. The Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court that legalized abortion in 1973, they made it legal for Adam to marry Steve. This has all been going on. It's been going on underneath our noses, and we're not doing anything about it. And then, in March of 2010, there was a group of people that served papers on all the governors across this great land that they should run their states according to the Constitution. Lieutenant governors got the same thing a week later, and the Secretary of State a week later after that. They should serve, and they should govern their states according to the Constitution of the United States of America. And nothing was done. And so the same people met in Ephraim, Utah. Remember, I told you the Constitution lay dormant all the way back March 27th, 1861. This country has not had a constitutional government since then. And the people that are in office in Washington, D.C. are puppets, run by puppeteers. They look like a government, but they're camouflages, they're imposters. They are not running this country according to the Constitution of the United States of America, because the Constitution has been laid dormant. And in 2010, November 2010, there were some people that had organized a government that re-inhabited the Constitution at Ephraim, Utah. And a year later, they voted on this flag, Forever Glory, to give identity to their Constitution, their government, our government, we the people. It's called the Republic for the United States of America. You see, all during this time, while they've been taken over, underneath, we've been watching ball games. We've been drinking the beer. We've been putting our feet up on our lazy boys. And as long as we've had a paycheck, as long as everything is comfortable, we keep on going. Well, guess what? I found out about the IRS. I found out about why we have real estate taxes. I found out why I get a little card in the mail from the DMV. I find out why there's a license to be a preacher, why there's a license to marry, why you have to get a birth certificate. They made all of us corporations. They made us slaves, and we didn't know it. We were born in slavery, and it's time for us to do something about it. The Declaration of Independence, written by Jefferson, says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That if any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it, abolish it, and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers to such form as to them would be most likely to affect their safety and happiness. He later wrote, prudence. In the next paragraph, he wrote, prudence indeed will dictate the government's long established shall not be changed for lighter transit reasons, but accordingly experience has so shown that accordingly people are made to suffer while evils are sufferable. Then making that form, but then abolishing that form to which they are accustomed. And then he said, when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, convinces of the design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and make new guards for their future security. That's what we're doing, and that's what these people have done. They voted on this flag. They gave their government, our government, a new identity. Old Glory has birthed a new flag. It's flying. This flag is flying, will fly with Old Glory. This flag was birthed out of the re-inhabitation of the Constitution in November at Ephraim, Utah. Listen to me, folks. It's springtime. You look outside and you see the buds on the trees. You see the flowers coming up, the tulips and the daffodils. You see the grass. The grass is green. It's spring. Our country was like it was laying in the wintertime dormant, the Constitution. But spring has come. We are alive. A new country is birthed, a new Constitution. No. It's the old Constitution being brought back to life, just like the buds on the tree. We must embrace this new flag that's flying with the Old Glory. This is the Old Glory's new birth, the Republic for the United States of America. I speak to you, all of you clergy, all of you churchgoers, all of you Christians across this land. The church must take right ground in regards to politics. The church, the Christians must vote for honest men and take right ground in regards to politics, or the Lord is going to curse and continue to curse this country. I'm telling you that God cannot sustain a free country that we have prayed for, that we love and pray for, unless Christians take back right ground. Politics is part of religion in such a country as this. Hear me, church. The church must do their duty to their country as part of their duty to God. God will bless this country, or he'll curse this country according to how the church gets involved in politics. Please, and that is from Finney. That is from Charles Finney. I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you. I found out about this in 2010, and I'm doing whatever I can to contribute. How can we take back our country? We've got to take back our country. John Adams, July 1st, when the Declaration was on the line, he said a speech. He said a speech that I'll never forget. He said, objects of the most stupendous magnitude, measures which will affect the lives of millions, born and unborn, are now before us. We must expect a great expense of blood and pain, but we must always remember that a free constitution of civil government cannot be purchased at too dear a rate, as there is nothing on this side of Jerusalem of greater importance to mankind. He said, my worthy colleague from Pennsylvania has spoken with great ingenuity and elegance, but where he foresees apocalypse, I see hope. I see a new nation in this world, a nation, an empire, not an empire, a republic of laws, not men. We are in the midst of revolution, gentlemen, the most complete, unexpected, and remarkable of any in the history of the whole world. How few of the human race have ever had an opportunity in choosing a system of government for themselves and their children. I am not without apprehensions, gentlemen, but I see the end in sight is worth more than all the means. And I believe the hour has come. And my judgment approves of this measure. And my whole heart is in it. And all that I have, and all that I am, and all that I hope to be in this life, I am now ready to stake my life upon it. I leave off to where I began. That live or die, survive or perish, I am for the Declaration. It shall be my living sentiment, and it shall be my dying sentiment. Independence now, and independence forever. While I live, let me have a country, a free country. Abe Lincoln said, this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. That government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, this flag represents God's government. This is God's government, the Republic for the United States of America. It was prophesied in Isaiah. It shall be a government without end. I plead and I beg with you, patriots across this land. I plead and I beg with you, clergy across this land. Tell your parishioners, tell your congregations, it's time that you preach civil government. Civil government has to be part of religion in a land such as this. It's time to open the door. It's time, America, to take back your country. It's time to lock arms and walk across this fruited plain. We have a vehicle. There's a train that's going across this country. It's got a great big locomotive. It's gold. On its top is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. On the illuminator on both sides, there's J on one side, C on the other side. The cars, there's millions of cars. The millions of cars are for we the people. I'm pleading with you, America. The time has come, and now is to lock arms. Let your mind and your eyes be focused on the prize. We're taking back America, and we're reestablished because we now have re-inhabited the Constitution for the United States of America in the Republic. Thank you. I have been running a race. I am now passing the baton to you, son. And you know what to do with it.